Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is part two of my interview with Joe and Rachel from 2KrazyKetos. This one, we go a little bit off of the keto path a couple of times, but they're super entertaining people, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
There are certain people in the keto community that are very very dogmatic, very militant. You know, there's one way to do keto, and if you're not doing it their way, you're doing it wrong, and they want to make sure that you know that you're doing it wrong. Um, do you find many of those people at these keto conferences, or are people
At the
generally more accepting?
conferences, I would say no. I think we do a pretty good job, and our amazing moderators in our Facebook group and in our Mighty Networks group do a good job of kind of ixnaying those people.
Yeah.
I like the way Nisha Berry says there's no right way to do keto. You do keto the Steve way or the Joe way or the Rachel way. I think it evolves over time. If you would have come to me when I got started doing keto and said you're never going to have a piece of chocolate or cake again, I would have been like, I'm
Forget
out.
it.
Like, not even worth trying. So I did utilize mug cakes and lots of, like, there weren't a lot of products when I got started 5 years ago, but
Mhm.
I utilized a lot of recipes and mug cakes and fat bombs and things like that. Now that's a very small part of my diet, but it's evolved. But I think that, when you look at, like, there's keto and ketovore and carnivore, you find the one that's right for you. And people ask me, what version keto should I do? The one that is sustainable for you.
Yeah.
If being carnivore is sustainable for you, have at it. For me, carnivore is not sustainable. To tell me you're never going to have another vegetable, another sweetener ever again in your life, it's not sustainable. I can do it for a week, but
Yeah.
I couldn't do that for the rest of my life. So for me, sustainable is mostly meat, a little bit of vegetables, the occasional treat, and making sure I get my electrolytes in the form of like a Relight or the Element. But when we go to the conferences, you really do see a lot more community. I mean, we've probably been to at least 10 conferences at this point, and I've never once seen anything like that, even though you have speakers who many times are on very opposite spectrums.
Mm.
I've seen speakers get up and say, you need to carb cycle and have a lot of vegetables every couple of months. And then I've seen other speakers get up and go, the only way to do it properly for me is carnivore. And even they get along.
Yeah.
And so I've never really seen this beating each other up at a conference, because I think people really focus on, hey, it's just really cool to be in a room with 1,000 people who all think like me.
Well, and I think that you become really aware at like one of those conferences that people are in keto for a lot of different reasons. Some people are doing therapeutic keto. Like, they came into it for, a brain injury situation, or they're fighting cancer. It's very different. I never went into a Weight Watchers meeting and there was like a diversity of like reasons why we're here. Everybody is here because they're trying to lose weight, but that's not necessarily the case in keto. So people, I feel like, have been, cheering one another no matter what keto looks like to them. And yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Sometimes we'll see a speaker, the first person will be very different, and then the next person, takes the stage and is almost telling you the opposite. But I've never seen a cage match like break out, which is, kind of awesome. I think that people too that are super militant and policey, they're not going to want to approach us. We already don't appeal to somebody like that. If I am militant in any way, it's that I don't like when people label themselves words that I feel like can kind of seep into other areas of their life. Like when someone says I'm dirty keto, or someone says I'm lazy keto or something.
We hate those terms like cheat meal, because you're calling yourself a cheater or lazy or dirty.
I just don't think that it puts you in a good headspace. I think that you do need to maintain some positivity no matter what goal you're searching for. Like, you're studying for an exam at school, thinking of yourself as dirty and lazy, I don't think that that's going to like really undergird what you're trying to accomplish in your life. So, I would much rather anybody says, Rachel Keto, that's what I do. It may look very different than somebody else's keto, but that's okay. We can be friends.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I struggle with in terms of dealing with some of the comments, is the lack of empathy, the lack of understanding that other people may have different types of keto, that fit their lifestyle. And that's, why I talk about pragmatic keto and echo exactly what you said, Joe, which is the keto that first off, I love the quote from Dr. Eric Westman about there's no such thing as keto food.
Oh yeah, I say it all the time. There's keto friendly food, but not keto food.
There is keto is a metabolic state. You're either in it or you're not. And
that's right.
Different people can eat different things. I can eat certain things that other people cannot, but that doesn't mean I'm right or that they're right. It's just we're doing what works for us. And then I totally agree with you, Rachel, that the then segmentation of keto, I think, is frustrating. Like, why can't we just call it keto and let it be this amorphous thing that we're all enjoying? And the one thing that's in common is we're in ketosis, we're fat burning. But aside from that, dirty keto, clean keto, this keto, that keto, whole food keto, whatever, eat what you want, provided, you can sustain it and afford it and you stay in ketosis.
I think that's why I love Dr. Berry's term for the proper human diet, because it encompasses all of us, because he got tired of the same thing of like, well, which way is the right way? The way that's sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, we're not Mandalorian, right? Like, this is the way, like, this is the only way, and
but we should be the Mandalorian because he's awesome.
Right. I know. I love the Mandalorian so much. Actually, all of these franchises, like total rabbit trail here, but man, the Star Wars franchise, that the Boba Fett series, I loved it. Like the new Obi-Wan, well done for a Star Wars nerd from way back. But
if I took down this screen, you would see my pop figure collection back there of all manner of Star Wars stuff.
You're speaking my love language with the Star Wars stuff. And then if we get into Harry Potter, then like uber nerd over here. But I think it's really important for people to remember that this might be somebody else's day one. We need to have some grace for people that are entering the space. And I think before somebody types a comment about like how their, optimized way of doing keto is working so much better for them, I know that it probably comes from like a root of, I want you to avoid some pitfalls that I fell into. And it would be great if you would just hit the ground running at the level that I'm running at now. But the thing is that if somebody, comes into it and it's just too overwhelming to think of just making that jump from standard American diet to like ketovore, that's such a huge like chasm for them to like traverse. The alternative is when they can't do it and they feel like a failure, they're going to go back to standard American diet. Would you prefer them to do it not at all, or do it not as well as you feel like it should be done? I think it's really important to think that I don't want to run somebody off from keto.
Yep.
Like in any way, shape, or form. I don't want them running back to some sort of a sugary wrapper because I feel like I need to insist that they do it my way.
Well, one of the things I say is we need to pitch a bigger tent, be more welcoming. And then I think what happens to a lot of people is what you described, Joe, which is you hit a point where these things that were like deal breakers for you early on, suddenly you start to care a lot less about. The sweets thing is huge. I mean, when I started, I needed the keto candy. I needed the fat bombs. Now I get done with dinner, my Ninja Creamy is largely sitting just getting dusty. Which makes me kind of sad because I didn't get it on Prime Day. I got it at full price. But I don't crave those things. And I think if we welcome people in and not scare them away with, you can't have this and you must do this. If we just say, hey, come on in, eventually, I think a lot of them are going to work their way to a place that's, cleaner and more effective for them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And again, this feels like the perfect time for a break. Although I don't have a beverage right now. And the only other thing I got down here in the man cave, I got, a bar fridge. I've got some Zevia, but if I drink that, I'm going to be just ripping out belches.
You're going to be burptastic.
That is pretty carbonated.
Anytime that like we tap out of like, and I don't have soda for a while, it's been so like seriously hot here that where I'm like, I just want like the coldest water I can get, maybe some electrolytes in it for some flavor. But like, yeah, I will almost like get away from a carbonated thing because I'm just like, I feel like it's taken too much energy in this heat to like digest it. But then you go and take a swig of that Zevia and you're like, you want me to belch the alphabet? I could totally do
Oh
it.
yeah. Get a bag of pork rinds and a cola flavored Zevia, and you are gonna belch better than Booger in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes, Booger.
Joe, I know that you are kind of a gadget geek, both kitchen. Well, I know for a fact kitchen, but then I also know you've got an Oculus Quest 2 or Meta Quest 2. So I know that probably just technology in general is kind of in your wheelhouse. Rachel, how about you? Are you into all this, or do you just kind of look at this and you're like,
I am seriously one bonnet away from being Amish. Like I am the person where you're trying to explain something to. Like my mom is better at like receiving information of how to use the new like iPhone. I am so low tech, it is pitiful. And it really, when we got together, I just did not understand his need for like optimizing tools. And it just kind of got into my brain after a while that he would say like, the right tool for the job is going to save you money in the long run. Because you have to examine for yourself, like how much is your time worth? And if I get this like crappy tile saw because it's like so much cheaper, but it's going to take me like days longer to like lay this tile, then, I think you're going to be happier if I go ahead and buy the more expensive stuff. And that has been true. We do have kind of a policy in our marriage and agreement that if he wants to upgrade or like get a new camera or get something new, we've got to sell the old. We don't want this to just become like a Best Buy, clearing warehouse, but like that's kind of the agreement we've made with one another.
Now on the other side, although I'm a gadget person, yeah, especially when it comes to the kitchen, which by the way, thanks for the Stuffler thing. She can quote pretty much any movie. She can pretty much quote Star Wars, anything nerdy like that. And also she has the uncanny ability to see somebody in a movie that hasn't been in a movie for 40 years. Like maybe they were like 3 years old and she can spot them at 60 years old and be like, I know what movie, and name the person. I'm like, how do you do that? Like you haven't seen them in 20 years.
So I put the money into our movie library. That's where my toolbox is in the movie library.
So Joe, you and I purchased the Anova Precision Oven probably within a week of each other. Like I was like waffling on it, and the moment you told me you got one, I'm like, all right, I'm pulling the trigger. If Joe's got one, I'm getting one.
We got Chris to get one as well.
What now that you've had a chance to work with it, first off, how often do you use it? And if you were to give a brief review, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one of these days I'll actually make a review video of it. By the way, do not buy it on Amazon. When I bought it, it was cheap on Amazon. Yesterday for Prime Day, it was $300 more than buying it on their website.
I saw it. I bought it directly from Anova.
So did we.
Culinary.
But I love it. I would never trade it in at this point, and I highly recommend. People ask me like if I have the room, I only should get one thing. I do recommend the Anova, even though it's expensive, because I do find it replaces so many things, and I use it on a regular basis. We've used sous vide for years, but I never used it as often as I should have because I had to pull out I have like the big
vacuum
plastic
seal
tub, and then you got to vacuum seal the food. And it was always a pain because you have to pull this thing out and fill it up with water and then vacuum seal it. Then you got to heat it up. And to have the Anova where I don't have to put it in a water bath. So if I want a sous vide thing, I pull out steak. It's still frozen. Stick the temperature probe in there. Set it in there for 128 degrees. And then I can turn it on from my car in the Publix parking lot. And then when you're done, turn it up to sear or whatever you want. So I use it almost every day. I love the way you can do so many things, from air frying to a regular oven to, actually doing the sous vide. I've only played around with the dehydrating function a little bit. If I had any complaint is that you do get a lot of condensation buildup inside. So you have to clean it out a lot. but it also makes cleaning it easier because if you run a cycle and you get that condensation and now everything wipes out instead of having to spray with a whole bunch of stuff.
Condensation. The only thing that I want to complain about it is it does not have a wash the dishes feature. So when they come out with the wash the dishes feature, like we will be upgrading.
And you do, I think, to use it the best way, another con for a lot of people, I think, I'm curious what you think, is to really get the most out of it, you have to use your phone.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I think that's, you can do a lot just with the dials, but it's so much easier to pull up your phone and put it to this temperature.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said so far. What I will add to it is we use it a ton for like reheating. So it's, you set it to 35-40% steam in addition to whatever heat, and you set it to the sous vide function. You're going to wind up like with food that doesn't dry out. It's going to be as good as when you made it the first time, almost regardless of what it is. And you're not going to overcook it. You throw in something and you say, all right, I want this to be at 160 degrees when I put it in my mouth or put it on a plate. So that's what you set it to. I agree completely on if you really want to use it, you need the app. You got to be using the phone. It's an amazing tool. But if you are not, if you are one bonnet away from being Amish, maybe that's not your thing.
Yeah.
The condensation thing, I agree with.
She doesn't know how to use it. She's like, she can barely press the buttons. You know what food we found the best to reheat it? Because the one food that I will not make at home is prime rib. Because I love prime rib. I'm not a ribeye guy. She's a ribeye guy, but I like prime rib because of the way that fat just becomes melt in your mouth candy. I don't want probably because of bad teeth. I don't like chewing the fat. But we only ever go out to eat like a Texas Roadhouse for prime rib because to make it right, you as a chef know, you really need to have like a 4 or 5 pound piece of meat. And when it's only the two of us, well, she could eat a 4 or 5 pound piece of meat, but I can't. So you have leftovers, and prime rib does not reheat well, except for in the Anova, because now you can put the probe in there. You've got leftovers, set it for 130 degrees. And I still have a medium, to medium rare prime rib, even though I'm eating it the next day.
Yeah. I agree with you on the condensation. Very often and this is frustrating, I think, when you're moving between settings, like you sous vide and then, you use the broil function, that there's no way to just purge out all that steam and condensation. So you would get a far better crust if you were able to get rid of that steam. Of course, you always just have the sous vide flamethrower thingy, and blast it with that, or get some cast iron, up to a ripping hot 700 degrees and go that way. The other issue that I have is it's not great for thermal retention. You open that door and the temperature,
you lose a lot of heat.
And it's again, when you're moving between cycles or something, and it's like, okay, you just sous vide it. I have a hard time. You did the sous vide operation on it, then you pull out that protein. All right, now you got a bunch of steam. Get rid of the steam. Get that thing up to 485 degrees. All right, finally it's up to 485 degrees. You open the door and you're like, okay, now it's down to 370 degrees.
Yeah, I find that too. But then when I want it to drop like a little bit, it takes forever. Like I have to like crack it open. But yeah, I think it'd be frustrating. I'd get up to 485 degrees to air fry something, and then as soon as I open the door and put it back in, now it says it's like 350.
Yeah. Yeah. Aside from that, though, I mean, before this, I had it was the Cuisinart like NSO 24 or 240, something like that. It was about the size of a toaster oven, and it was a combi oven. It was the first sort of consumer available combi oven.
Yeah, I think we had the Breville, so it was like similar.
Well, and I had read about combi ovens probably 12 years ago in the Modernist Cuisine cookbook. And at the time, only restaurants had them. But then again, at the time, pretty much only restaurants had sous vide as well, and I paid for that. If you had a favorite kitchen gadget, is it the Anova or something else?
Oof,
that's a good question.
That is we get asked this all the time, and it's hard for me to give up pretty much anything. I probably, if I had to that would be the hardest one for me to give up. I mean, I love my Vitamix, but like, I don't know. probably at this point, that would be the hardest because it can replace so many things. The thing that we absolutely, Rachel thought was the stupidest purchase in the world, and now she loves, is the electric Blackstone.
I love
the
that
17-inch electric Blackstone, because it's just a Blackstone that you put in your house, and it's not even as good as the outside Blackstone because it's not cast iron, it's ceramic coated, but you never need to pull a frying pan out of your cabinet. And it wipes up easy, and it's got a grease trap in the back, and it's got a lid on it. So we use it for bacon and eggs and whatever you want. So I love that thing, but I still think that the Anova oven at this point, like, is the one thing. If I couldn't get rid of something, that would be it.
Well, I definitely think it's gonna, besides my coffee pot, let's be honest, like my favorite thing is my coffee pot. Like after that, assuming I get to have a coffee pot first, then the next thing would be the Blackstone, because I'm not a good cook. I mean, I'm just trying to stay alive over here. Like that's basically my level of cooking. And that's why our recipes are, you know,
we have a tagline, so easy Rachel can make it. And that is for us, when we make a recipe video, it has to be easy enough for her to cook it. And if it's not, we won't make a video.
I couldn't even make, the children never even experienced normal sized pancakes when they were growing up, because I would be like chasing it around the pan. Like I was never great at making bacon, none of those things. And then there was always like the smell factor, you know, you'd make hamburgers or something, and it was just like, it was so hot in the kitchen and like so smelly. And that thing, the lid really does just keep all of like the bacon smell out.
The splatter is gone. And then you have such a nice surface to cook on that I can, you know, chase that pancake around now and feel like I'm being very successful. But it takes a lot of counter space.
It does.
I don't think keeping the bacon smell out is a selling point for me. I want something that really, like, I want a diffuser.
We never cooked bacon in the house. I never wanted to cook bacon because, first of all, the grease. I was a frying pan guy. I was never really an oven person. But like our oldest son, before he moved out, he would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I am not a morning person. And he would cook bacon, and now the entire house smells like bacon or bacon grease for hours.
Well, and
it would wake me up, and I'm like, yeah, no, for now on, bacon gets cooked outside.
There is no sleeping through bacon. I have absolutely slept through a hurricane, an actual hurricane here in Florida. I slept through it. I've never slept through bacon. Like if bacon like is cooking, I am come a running.
I got one more. Old onions in the garbage can.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You get onions, you cook with onions. It's got to go outside that night, right? Because in the morning, it's the whole house.
That is another one.
Well, I would go one step further and say, like, if you've been peeling shrimp, like fresh shrimp.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Shrimp, chicken, all of that stuff.
Oh, shrimp. It's like, oh, my gosh. It's so bad, Steve. It's so bad. Like, and we do eat a lot of shrimp because, you know, South Florida, we're all about the shrimp. But yes, if the children do not remember to transfer that garbage can, like the garbage bag, into like the big dumpster, we have to move. I mean, we literally have to like move houses because it just discolors and smells so stanky.
So we had probably just a little bit more time left.
Okay.
So I want to segue away from the kitchen and back to keto. What do you think? I had seen an article recently that said, or it estimated that about 5% of people, I think Americans, are doing keto in one form or another. Do you think keto's peaked? Do you think it's going to get bigger or not?
My personal opinion is I don't necessarily know about keto in itself. I think that eating more of a whole foods approach where you will be in and out of ketosis is definitely going to continue to grow. Whether that is through keto or carnivore or paleo or, you know, even the Mediterranean diet, depending on how high you bring up your carbs. But the transitioning away from all of the prepackaged garbage that you find in the stores, I think that is going to continue to rise just because you're, especially keto and carnivore type lifestyle, because you're starting to see even more physicians now. It's small, but more and more are starting to recognize like, hey, there's something to this. When you're starting to see even like the American Diabetes Association start going, we need to look at lowering carbs for diabetics. I think that that's going to have an impact. So I don't think that keto is the trend that you saw with a lot of other diets or even with Atkins. I mean, the bottom line is Atkins has been around for years and people still do Atkins. This is just, it's Atkins without the transition back to carbs, which I don't works personally.
Yeah, well, for me, I think that they'll definitely the name may change. I don't know, like, sometimes you get like a bad connotation with like a certain name because, people have, I don't know, like they've commercialized it in a way that people find unappealing. So I definitely think that we'll find another name for it. It'll continue to evolve that way. But I definitely think that people are interested in getting back to a whole foods approach. I think that if like the 2 years of like the Voldemort years that we all experienced, I think that people just kind of naturally wanted to take more ownership of, even growing their own food. People started like planting gardens again. People started, I mean, we got backyard chickens ourselves, even, in suburbia. So I think that people want to be closer to the food that they eat. We recently purchased a cow from a local farmer. And let me tell you, it's not always easy to find a farmer of cows here in South Florida, but there was a desire to be more in charge of what we ate and to get closer to our food sources. And so I believe that that's a trend that started, and I'm very hopeful that that people will continue to come on board for that, because you feel very empowered. If you're like, gosh, that, this egg, I'm taking care of the chicken and this is the egg that's, the result. And I think that once people, start using whole foods, it kind of naturally requires you to get into the kitchen and cook it. Like you're no longer, your meal isn't just a 90-cent or 90-second, like nuking, a burrito. And because of that, we're in the kitchen, we're talking to our families more. There's a pace that is just slowing down so that families can enjoy the experience. Because when you cook meat, it takes as long as it takes, And so you're going to see a resurgence of like just conversations, families around the table. And I think that people are hungry for that.
I agree. I have a little story that I'll just interject. This is pre-keto. So I was making my own beer, making my own bread. But I had a garden. So I was making my own tomatoes and making my own lettuce. And I was curing and smoking my own bacon and making my own mayonnaise at home. And as I sat down once and I was eating a BLT and drinking, a pint of IPA, it occurred to me every single thing that I was putting into my head hole on that meal is something I created. And that is just, it's an amazing, amazing feeling, I think, for a lot of us. So I agree with you, Rachel, on that people do. The other thing too is when you make it, what went into it. There's no mystery ingredients. You don't wonder, is this going to spike my glucose? Is this going to knock me out of ketosis? Because I made it.
Yeah. I think to sum it up, like I said, a lot of us, I think, come to keto for the weight loss, but stay for the health benefits. And I think as we're moving forward, you're going to see keto stay around, not so much for weight loss, but because of the health benefits. Right. I think that's why keto is going to become more popular, not so much for the weight loss aspect, but because people are going to realize all the health benefits. We tell subscribers all the time, if you never lost another pound, but you reversed your type 2 diabetes, you were off of metformin, you maybe lowered your blood pressure, you've got more cognitive function, you've got more mobility, your arthritis is gone, would it be worth it?
Right.
And I think that that's a question a lot of people have to answer. And more I'm seeing the answer is, yeah, I'd rather weigh 200 pounds but be off of all those medications and feel well than weigh 140 pounds and be on death's door.
Yeah.
Yep. Great point. And I'm tempted to just wrap it right there. But I want to do one little fun thing at the end, which is, the comedian Jeff Foxworthy, has this routine on you may be a redneck if, so I like the you may be keto if. So what do you think would be how would someone know if keto is right for them in sort of a funny Jeff Foxworthy sort of way?
Oh man. I definitely think that I know I'm keto because I will be like in a restaurant and Joe'll be like, you cannot approach that person, but I will see them cut off the fat and I will be like, you gonna eat that? Like, and he's like, you don't know this person. And I'm like, they're completely discarding this fat. I could totally just walk up to them and just be like, you're not doing anything with that fat. Can I eat on that? I know that that's meat candy for me. And he's like, do not approach a stranger and ask for what they've cut off of their plate.
That's pretty funny. That's like, wasn't it in Caddyshack where Spalding is like, "Are you going to eat your fat?"
Yeah.
Oh, so we were at Keto Las Vegas, and we were at a where were we? We were at a Brazilian steakhouse with Bronson Dan, a whole bunch of people. Bronson Dan was sitting next to me, and he's the reason I've gotten more into fitness because he's like a year younger than me, and he looks like he's 25. He's sitting here next to me, and he does not like to eat a tremendous amount of fat. Like, he eats fat in other ways, and he's cutting his fat off of his picanha. And I'm here, Bronson's here, Rachel's there. She literally reaches her fork over, stabs the fat, and puts it in her mouth.
Yeah.
So
I'm that friend.
I'm gonna say you may be keto if your idea of dessert is a pound of bacon.
Yes.
I would say that's pretty true. I would also say you may be keto if you think hollandaise is soup.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, you definitely. I definitely think it's so funny. I remember thinking like we need to have a bunch of like soups and we really don't eat as wet of things, right? Like everything we had was like very wet before keto. It was like lots of soups, lots of stews, like even our chili was very different than now. It's so funny now. It's like I almost feel like I have to fight for the fact that you don't need beans in chili, right? It's just meat. I want more meat in my chili. There's not enough meat in here. Fix it.
Well, thank you guys so much. We shot over on time. I'm gonna have to decide what to do with all of this. If I want to carve this into 2 podcasts, or edit it out, or just throw in a metric ton of ad breaks so I can get some serious revenue. But it's always a pleasure talking to you guys. You guys are so much fun. I enjoy watching your channel, mostly just for the banter that goes on between the two of you. It's if someone didn't know, they might think it was scripted, but you guys, you play off of each other so well. It's so fun to watch. You always leave me with a big smile, and you've left me with a big smile today. So I'm glad you could join me.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us, Steve. We love you.
Hey,
Bye.
feelings mutual. And recording.
Yay!